Let's talk about something we all think we know how to do: read. But what if I told you that just seeing the words on a page is only the beginning? Today, we're diving into the art of active reading, using the classic guide from Mortimer Adler to unlock an author's mind. So, let me ask you straight up, do you really know how to read? I mean, of course, we all learned how in elementary school, but there's a whole other level, a deeper, more powerful way of reading that most of us never get taught. It's the difference between just collecting facts and actually growing your understanding. And, well, it turns out most of us never quite get there.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This comes straight from the master himself, Mortimer Adler. Picture this. He's a young, brilliant, and probably pretty cocky teacher at Columbia University. He gets assigned to teach a course on the great books, works he thought he'd already mastered. But as he started rereading them to prep for his classes, he had this just stunning realization. The books felt, in his own words, almost brand new. He realized that the first time around, he hadn't truly read them at all.
And this gets to the heart of the illusion we all live with. We tend to treat reading like a natural skill, something that becomes automatic, like walking. But Adler says, no, that's completely wrong. Reading isn't a natural skill, it's a practiced art. It's way more like playing tennis or learning an instrument. It's a complex activity with rules, and you only get better with conscious, focused effort.
Okay, so if it's an art, how do we start practicing it? Well, it all begins with one huge distinction that completely reframes what we're doing when we pick up a book. It's the difference between reading for information and reading for understanding.
Adler splits it into two basic types. First, there's reading for information. This is when you're reading a magazine article or a news website. You're taking in facts that fit neatly into what you already know. Your mind isn't really being stretched. But then there's reading for understanding. This is the real deal. It's when you tackle a book that's a little bit above your pay grade. The whole point isn't just to gather facts, but to lift your entire mind from a state of understanding less to a state of understanding more. You can really see the difference when you put them side by side. When you're just grabbing facts from a newspaper, the goal is simple acquisition, and the effort is pretty minimal. It's kind of passive. But when you're trying to genuinely increase your comprehension with a challenging book, the goal is growth, and it requires maximum, fully active effort.
Now this leads to a really interesting idea. For this kind of reading to even work, the writer has to know more than you do. There has to be this initial inequality. And your job, as the active reader, is to pull yourself up, to try and overcome that gap. The goal is to raise your own understanding to meet the authors. When you get close to that, that's when real communication actually happens.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Work, effort, this sounds kind of exhausting, but Adler offers this fantastic analogy that completely reframes it. He wants us to think of reading not as a chore, but as a dynamic, skillful sport.
This is just brilliant. He compares reading to a game of baseball. We usually think the writer is the active one, right? They're the pitcher, throwing the ideas, and the reader is just sort of there. But Adler says no way. The reader isn't a spectator. The reader is the catcher. And catching a ball is an incredibly active and skillful part of the game.
So let's break that down. The writer, the author, they're the pitcher. They wind up and throw their ideas out into the world. The book itself, that's the ball flying through the air. And you, the reader, you are the catcher. Your job is to get in position, focus, and actively work to receive every single bit of meaning that writer intended to send. You are a key player in this game.
Okay, so if we're going to be active catchers, we need a toolkit. We need a system. It's not enough to just say, I'm going to try harder. We need an actual method. And luckily, Adler provides a clear, practical framework for doing just that.
He calls this whole system analytical reading, and it breaks down into three really logical stages. Step 1, you have to grasp the book as a whole, its basic shape. Step 2, you zoom in to understand the author's specific message. And only then, after you've done that, do you earn the right to move to Step 3, engaging in a real conversation with the author. So, stage 1 is all about the big picture. Before you even think about the details, you have to get the blueprint of the book. Ask yourself, what kind of book is this really? A history? A novel? A philosophy text? Can I boil the entire point of this book down to 1 or 2 sentences? How is it structured? You're basically creating a map of the territory before you start exploring.
All right, now we get to the fun part. Stage 2 is where you put on your detective hat. This is about deep interpretation. First, you have to find the author's key words and figure out exactly what they mean by them. You have to come to terms. Then you hunt for their most important sentences, the ones that contain their main claims or propositions. Finally, you see how those sentences link together to build their main arguments.
And only after all that hard work of understanding can you finally move to stage 3, criticism. And Adler has a golden rule here. You have no right to agree or disagree with the book until you can confidently say, I understand. Once you can say that, then you can start to judge it. Is the author missing key information? Are their arguments illogical? Is their analysis incomplete? This is where you finally get to talk back.
So, why? Why go through all this trouble? Because this whole system isn't just about getting better grades or sounding smart at a dinner party. According to Adler, this is about something much, much bigger. It's about becoming a free and independent thinker.
This is the ultimate payoff right here. That discipline, that effort, that active reading demands, it isn't about restricting you. It's about liberating you. Adler literally called reading and writing the liberating arts because they are the tools that free your mind from ignorance and manipulation, allowing you to think for yourself.
And you can see how important this is, especially today. We are swimming in an ocean of information, misinformation, and flat-out propaganda. The person who just passively absorbs whatever comes their way is incredibly vulnerable. But the active reader, they can question, they can analyze, they can judge for themselves. This skill, honestly, is the very foundation of a free mind.
Ultimately, what Adler is calling for is for us to do more than just consume words on a page. He's inviting us to engage with them, to wrestle with them, and in the end, to make them a true part of our own understanding. So the next time you pick up a challenging book, don't just see the words. Ask yourself, are you ready to read, mark, learn, and truly, inwardly digest?